I feel like this stretch, this is a big game for us. I think we've struggled in the fact that we're able to play one good game and then we play a bad game, then we play a good game, then we play a bad game. So I think for us is like, we got to find a way to be able to stack really good games together. And then we go on the road and, we're on a back-to-back, which is just a challenge in itself. No matter who you're playing, we play Connecticut, then we play New York. So I think Steph's message was, yes, All-Star's coming up, that break's coming up, but our focus is on these 3 games that we have left. So in that sense, I do think it's critical that our focus just remains on the game in front of us, and I feel like that's what everybody in the locker room is doing.
It's late in the game, and everyone knows it's over. The scoreboard isn't just lopsided, it's a verdict. The crowd starts to thin, the final buzzer sounds, players exchange quick handshakes, eyes down, expressions blank, another game in the books. But here's what the cameras won't show you, the real story. It's just beginning, because while the arena clears out and the lights dim, somewhere deep in a press room, under fluorescent lights and tired eyes, a single question gets asked and Paige Bueckers answers it with a pause, a stare, and then a sentence that changes everything. A rivalry that was once polite suddenly rips wide open. And what she says, it's not just frustration, it's truth leaking out from behind the mask, a crack in the professional facade that tells us more than a stat sheet ever could. This is the moment the rivalry got real. And if you're here for the game behind the game, for the moments that change everything.
Mitchell bounces, Boston, one more time. This time Mitchell delivering, and Boston up to 13 points. Indiana shooting 66%.
Hours later, in a cold, sterile press conference room, Paige Bueckers sat beneath the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. The game was over. The headlines were already being written. Then came a simple question from a reporter, a routine inquiry about Caitlin Clark's defensive performance. Paige didn't answer right away. She just stared back. There was a long pause, a flicker of something in her eyes, frustration, disbelief, maybe even embarrassment. Then she spoke. "You just answered the question," she said flatly. She followed up with, "She's obviously just a very smart basketball player, so she'll get out and deny passing lanes. But yeah, that's it." And that was the moment the mask slipped. Gone were the polished, media-friendly responses. In that instant, we didn't see the composed professional. We saw the real Paige Bueckers, a competitor who had just been thoroughly outplayed by her biggest rival. A player who, even in trying not to say much, ended up revealing everything. 4 weeks, we've been fed the professional answers. We've been told it's just another game, team versus team, not player versus player. But in that press conference moment, with one terse, frustrated dismissal, Paige Bueckers finally broke her silence. And what she revealed cut straight to the heart of this rivalry. It exposed the raw, emotional undercurrent hiding beneath the polished media narratives right after what may have been the most humiliating loss of her young career. We're going to decode what that moment really meant and why it changes everything for the future of what is now the WNBA's most electric main event. This is the story behind the story. And for us, the narrative analysts, this is where the truth actually lives, not in the box score, but in the cracks between press conference answers, in the pauses, the tone, the silences. If you believe the real game is played as much in the mind as it is on the court, do me a favor and smash that like button. It tells us you're here for the real story. To understand the weight behind Bueckers' press conference comment, we need to rewind the clock. Because this wasn't just a mid-season game buried on a crowded schedule, this was the game. The one circled on every calendar since draft night. Clark versus Bueckers. Part 1. The professional debut of a rivalry that has been quietly building for years. These two have been linked since they were kids playing on the same USA basketball teams in middle and high school. Their paths diverged in college. Clark headed to Iowa, where she rewrote the offensive record books. Bueckers chose the storied dynasty at UConn, becoming the face of tradition and poise. But even as they went in different directions, everyone knew their careers were destined to collide again on a bigger, brighter, more pressure-filled stage. And they did. In college, Caitlin Clark got the better of their head-to-heads, holding a 2-1 advantage, including that now legendary 71-69 victory in the 2024 Final Four that sent Bueckers and UConn packing. So, coming into their first showdown as pros, the narrative had already written itself. This was Paige Bueckers' shot at redemption, and it was Clark's chance to prove her college dominance wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. With both players being back-to-back #1 overall picks, the league, the fans, and the media had poured gasoline on this rivalry for months. ABC picked up the broadcast nationally. knowing full well this wasn't just a game, it was an event. And with that kind of hype comes pressure. The kind of pressure that either forges legends or breaks teams. What unfolded at Gainbridge Fieldhouse wasn't just a loss, it was a dismantling. Yes, the final score read 102-83, but that number doesn't come close to capturing the depth of the humiliation. The Dallas Wings didn't just lose a basketball game, they were picked apart piece by a team that, for the first time all season, finally committed to playing the way their rookie superstar was born to play. It all flipped in the second quarter. After a competitive start, the Indiana Fever didn't just shift gears, they blew the entire fuse box. Coach Stephanie White finally took the leash off Caitlin Clark, letting her push the pace and dictate the flow of the offense the way she's been begging to do all season. The result? Absolute chaos for Dallas. The Fever dropped a franchise record 64 points in the first half alone, outscoring the Wings 36-5 in the second quarter. It was a stunning, blistering run that left Dallas completely shell-shocked. This was transition basketball at its finest, a masterclass in tempo and vision. The full-court touchdown passes that made Clark a sensation at Iowa were suddenly lighting up a WNBA stage. She was hitting teammates in stride, delivering dimes nobody else saw coming. The ball movement was electric. The chemistry was flowing. The Fever tied a franchise record with 30 assists, and 13 of those came directly from Clark. But here's the part the box score watchers missed. This wasn't just Caitlin Clark having a good game. This was Caitlin Clark elevating everyone around her. Her pace, her vision, her confidence, it became contagious. Kelsey Mitchell caught fire, dropping 20 points with effortless rhythm. Aaliyah Boston re-established dominance in the paint. Natasha Howard was a blur in transition, pouring in 18 points on hyper-efficient shooting. The whole team, locked in, firing on all cylinders. This was Fever basketball, not the half-measure version we'd seen all season in short, frustrating bursts. This was the full vision, the blueprint finally realized. And at the heart of it all was Caitlin Clark, not just scoring, but conducting an entire offense like a maestro, orchestrating spacing, controlling tempo, putting together one of the most singular stat lines in league history: 14 points, 13 assists, and 5 steals. And with that performance, Clark etched her name into the record books, once again becoming the only player in WNBA history to record that exact stat line twice. She now stands alone. Meanwhile, as Paige Bueckers struggled to find clean looks and fought for every shot, Clark was rewriting history right in front of her. That's not just a loss, that's a statement. But here's what makes it even more fascinating and honestly, more unbelievable. Just days earlier, Indiana didn't look anything like this. In fact, they looked like they were on the verge of collapse. Clark had admitted it herself. The team couldn't sustain momentum. They'd win one big game, then crumble in the next. She was in the middle of a confidence-shaking shooting slump, trying to hold her head high by comparing herself to Steph Curry during his own cold stretches. But even then, you could hear the frustration breaking through, because the real issue wasn't just missed shots. It wasn't just a cold streak. It was something deeper, something internal. There were real, brewing tensions inside the locker room, especially over how this team was playing, and more importantly, how fast they were playing. Caitlin Clark wanted to run. She wanted to push the tempo, unleash fast breaks, and play the high-octane style that made her a legend at Iowa. But the system she stepped into in Indiana, it was slower, methodical, a leftover philosophy from an older era of basketball. And this wasn't just a minor disagreement. It was a full-blown clash of identities. Everything boiled over during that now infamous moment against the Atlanta Dream, when cameras caught a heated sideline exchange between Clark and coach Stephanie White. It was quick, but telling. A flash of tension that confirmed what many had quietly suspected. Something wasn't right inside that locker room. There was conflict. So when Dallas began prepping for this game, they weren't just studying film on Caitlin Clark, they were preparing to face a team in turmoil. A team plagued by inconsistency, slumps, and a fractured sense of identity. On paper, this should have been an opportunity. Instead, they walked into a buzzsaw. Because the Fever didn't just resolve their internal conflict, they weaponized it. They embraced the chaos, let Clark run wild, and unleashed a brand of basketball that left Dallas scrambling. And the humiliation, it didn't end on the offensive end. While national viewers were busy replaying Clark's no-look dimes and highlight reel fast breaks, her defense was quietly telling the other half of the story. She tied her career high with 5 steals, anticipating passing lanes like she had the other team's playbook. She wasn't just disrupting Dallas, she was dismantling them. With that performance, Clark became just the 5th player in WNBA history to post multiple games with at least 10 points, 10 assists, and 5 steals. That's not just elite company, that's all-time greatness. And the exclamation point, one play that summed it all up. Clark swatted a shot with authority, grabbed the loose ball, and without hesitation, launched a full-court dart to Sophie Cunningham for an effortless fast-break bucket. Even more brutal, the Dallas Wings star, Eriko Gunbowl, one of the league's most explosive, fearless scorers, went 0 for 10 from the field. She finished with just 2 points. The Fever defense, with Caitlin Clark disrupting everything at the point of attack, didn't just slow her down, they shut her down completely. And that's the backdrop. That's the context that makes Paige Bueckers' post-game frustration so revealing. So let's go back to that press conference. Paige walks in, composed but tense. The air is heavy. A reporter asks her a question about Clark's defense, and that's when we get the moment. She looks up, pauses, and says, "You just answered the question." Not an answer, a deflection, a stiff arm, a signal that she doesn't want to give this topic any oxygen. Then she adds, "She's obviously just a very smart basketball player, so she'll get out and deny passing lanes." It's the kind of comment that looks respectful on paper but sounds different when you hear it, obviously. Like it's no big deal. Like Clark didn't just dominate her team in every phase of the game. And then comes the final line. The quiet dagger, but yeah, that's it. It's a verbal shrug, an emotional white flag. In that moment, Paige Bueckers wasn't the poised, polished #1 pick we've come to know. She was just a competitor who had been outplayed, and she knew it. And the world saw it. Now let's be clear, that comment doesn't mean Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark hate each other. For years, they've carefully maintained a public image of mutual respect, friends since middle school, teammates on USA basketball squads, two faces of a generation raised in the same spotlight. In interviews, they've both gone out of their way to be gracious. Clark once said, "We've always been friends. I wouldn't say we're best friends and talk all the time, but I've always been supportive." Paige echoed the same sentiment. It's not Paige versus Caitlin, it's the Fever versus the Wings. But this, right here, is why we analyze the narrative. Because the truth doesn't always show up in the smiles and the sound bites. It reveals itself under pressure. And that press conference, that was pressure. The "but yeah" moment doesn't erase their friendship, but it stamps a giant asterisk next to it. Because when the cameras were rolling and the wounds were fresh, the competitor inside Paige Bueckers refused to pretend everything was fine. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't deflect with grace. She let the emotion crack through the surface, and for the first time, this rivalry stopped being polite. This rivalry, it just got real. And the next chapter, it's already written. These two will meet again, not once, but twice more this season. The next showdown, August 1st, in Dallas, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Over 20,000 fans are expected, one of the largest WNBA crowds of the year. You don't think the Wings have circled that date in red ink? You don't think Paige Bueckers is replaying every second of that loss in her head? This isn't just about skill anymore. This is about pride, about redemption, about answering back on the biggest stage possible. But before that, they'll share the court as teammates in the WNBA All-Star Game. And make no mistake, every handshake, every sideline glance, every possession will be watched through this new lens. The rivalry isn't hypothetical anymore. It's alive, and it's burning hotter than ever. So what do you think? Was Paige Bueckers' post-game comment a sign of real animosity, or just raw emotion after a crushing loss? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, we'll be breaking down the 20,000 fan rematch with a full deep dive right here. Hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and stay locked in. And if you've got a friend who lives for the drama, the rivalries, and the story behind the story, share this video with them. Help us grow this community of narrative analysts, because the season isn't over, the story isn't finished. In fact, it's just getting started.